Good morning, everybody. Here we go again. Another webinar, another week, another session. John, how are you today? You okay?
Very good. Enjoying the sunshine. Yeah, very good.
Indeed, we finally have air conditioning in the office, so we're also able to benefit from, having nice weather outside, but keeping cool inside as well. So good morning to everybody that is joining us today. Please do drop a couple of messages in the chat function just so that we know everything's up and running and working. That will be absolutely amazing. I always like to give it 30 seconds, 60 seconds, just to let the people in, get themselves sorted before we kick today's session off. Good morning, Jade. Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm looking forward to this session, John. It's going to be really good. I think it's quite topical. Morning, Ravi.
Yeah, it's as we were saying, it's quite an unusual session for me, this one. I've talked about a lot of what I'm going to talk about today in sort of bite-sized chunks with people quite regularly. And it's been quite interesting pulling it together into a single topic. So it's the first time I've done this this particular topic in this way. But it's full of elements that I've talked about a lot. But I'm quite interested to see how this goes today. It has to be said. It's quite an interesting topic.
Well, let's kick things off. The webinar today is scheduled to run for the 4 hour. So please make the most of your time with us. Ask as many questions as you'd like. The Q&A option keeps things anonymous. The chat function that you're typing in there is for everybody to see. So just ask the questions wherever you feel most comfortable. No question is silly. Just get it over and we'll do our best to answer those for you. We've got a couple of polls throughout the session as well. So please do participate. It's good to get your input. Feedback is so important to us. Me and John was just talking about feedback because this is obviously a new presentation from John as well. So feedback is so important to us. So when you exit the webinar today, there will be a little feedback form that pops up. It will take no longer than 60 seconds. If you wouldn't mind just giving us your input and your feedback from today's session, it's the only way that we can improve. So as always, we'll have a bit of time towards the end as well. So if you want to have that Q&A session with John, please do hang around if time allows to do so. Let's kick things off if things start working for me. There we go. So welcome to the Financial Planning Club. I'm Lee, one of the co-founders of the Financial Planning Club. And at the heart of what we do is a simple idea. We want to surround ambitious advisors with the tools, expertise, and accountability to build long-lasting, succeeding, successful businesses. So when you look at it as a whole, we are built for business owners. So we provide structure, clarity, and accountability, helping you stay focused, save time, and make progress. You're generally surrounded by people who want to see you succeed, and that's the beauty of it. You'll learn from leaders who have walked your path, no fluff, just practical insights and guidance that help you turn challenges into opportunities. We're quite a supportive bunch as well. This is a space where you're not alone. You can talk to people who get it and collaborate on real world problems. Most importantly, you'll be part of a community of trusted, like-minded individuals that have been there, done it, and worn the t-shirt as well. So it's a place to learn, grow, and celebrate wins together. If we look at the club membership as a whole for business owners, our members wanted more than just advice. They want the confidence and clarity to lead their business forward. So that's exactly what we do for our club members. It's about giving them direction. It's a structured business plan, clear 90-day sprints, all tailored to what they want to achieve within their businesses, and ongoing accountability to actually get there as well. I think that's so important, having that accountability. We're helping them unlock new opportunities using strategies that work, streamlining systems so that they can actually scale without burnout as well. They're not doing this alone. They've got a network of peers and experts who get it, and it is a safe space to talk, reflect, and grow. Clarity is so important. With the right support, our members know exactly where they're going, where they're heading, and what actions matter most right now. With experts' input behind them, they're making decisions more easily and trusting both their plans and their process. And most of all, it's about freeing up your time so that you can spend more time focusing on your clients, your team, and the future of your business. Outside of that, we are a community for absolutely everybody. You don't just have to be a business owner to be a part of the Financial Planning Club. Some of you may know, and some of you very much might be a part of it, but our WhatsApp groups are absolutely buzzing. It's quick answers, no fluff, just meaningful conversations that solve problems on the go. Our webinars, expert-led. John is with us today, highly practical and CPD accredited as well. We know nothing beats face-to-face events, so our in-person strategy events help you build better businesses and longer, meaningful relationships. You could dip into our podcasts on the go. You can hear from leaders of financial planning businesses, people that have started from nothing and grown incredible businesses, and people that are on maybe a similar journey to yourself. So you can get your podcasts on all of your Spotifys and your Apple Music and wherever they are these days. And also our CEO roundtables. Now, these are definitely more strategic. It's real high-level discussions for business leaders who want to make smart, forward-thinking decisions. So every quarter, we get business owners together on a bit of a roundtable and have really good in-depth sort of strategy sessions, if you like. We are on tour. We do have 2 in-person events lined up. These are exclusive for business owners and for standalone self-employed advisors, if you like, ones that are wearing multiple caps at once. We had just over 60 people in the room a few weeks ago in London. It was an absolute hit with everybody that came along. So we thought, well, let's pick it up. Let's go to Leeds. Let's not leave the Northerners out as such. So we're coming to Leeds on Friday, the 26th of September, followed by Birmingham on Friday, the 28th of November. The agenda is absolutely stacked, as always. We'd expect nothing less. We kick things off at 9 o'clock. The first session is all about personal motivators. So it's enabling you to rediscover your why. It's through a highly interactive, it is a fun motivator session as well, and that's run by Lewis. So it's a really good session. We then look at strategies to win and retain clients across multiple generations. It's so important at the moment, this generational wealth. And then we finish off with building a client referral scheme that actually works. So everything we do at our event is collaborative and interactive. Sitting and listening is simply not possible at our events. You do get 5 hours of CPD. It is free to attend our events, and we're going to have some really good collaborators in the room with us as well. So do come along if you're in the area, and there'll be some details on the feedback form as well for you to get involved with any of our sort of WhatsApp groups or any of our events. We've got 2 brilliant webinars coming up that tackle what we think is one of the biggest frustrations in our profession, and that's technology that just doesn't work together. Some of you may have seen or heard the launch of Pilot recently. So in a couple of weeks, we're joined by the owners of Pilot, who have launched a brand new software, if you like. It is built, it's advisor built, and it will hopefully reshape the software landscape. So the guys who set up Pilot have been in the industry for a very long time and have built a bit of tech that's end to end, if you like. Following on, we've got FE Fund Info with us, and this is all about fixing again the fragmented tech stack. So here we're going to explore the hidden costs of disconnect systems and the risks they pose to compliance. We'll also cover how integration can lead to scalable growth. So as always, register via our website to attend any of our webinars, and you can also revisit any of our previous webinars on our website as well. Lastly, we couldn't do what we do without the incredible support of our collaborators. Each and every one of these businesses play a key part in members navigating change or unlocking new opportunities. What we think unites them is their shared commitment to moving the financial planning profession forward through their expertise, their innovation, and just a genuine desire to make a real difference. So from technology to training, marketing to compliance, they bring the tools and the insights that fuel real sort of progress within your business, which is absolutely incredible. So a huge thank you and a well-deserved shout out to everybody that's now collaborating with a club. You do play a massive part in everybody's journey. So thank you very much. Moving on to today's session. So kindly joined by John Nettin, COO of BareRock. John, here we go. You've been in the financial industry now since the early 90s, starting out as an advisor before moving into a compliance oversight role and a board director roles. You later went on to co-found the award-winning Sense Network. So with that background, it's fair to say I think you know what it's like to work within the financial advice sector. How was that
Yeah,
for
yeah.
was that okay for an opening? That was all right, right?
That's wonderful. I'm still laughing at the fact that my picture was from pre-COVID, and I may have put the odd pound on since that point in time. I love that picture. Can we always use that picture, please?
Yeah, absolutely. The saying is
Sorry, yeah.
carrying a bit of baby fat, but now we're carrying a bit of COVID fat, right? So
Bit of COVID fat, I think. Yeah,
COVID
yeah,
fat.
yeah.
So we asked a
Older
couple
you
of
get,
people.
harder it is to shake.
Yeah. So we asked a couple of people when they signed up to the webinar about their PI and just really about where their firm stands today on quality management. So most firms have their PI insurance renewal coming up in the next 6 to 12 months, and about a third of firms are already moving towards a smarter integrated system. So it's a real positive sign in progress. Is there, reflecting on those questions and answers, is there a right time that firms should be looking at their PI renewal? And, like many insurance, if you like, you have to start looking at this 3 months before, is there a sweet spot for firms that are looking to renew their PI?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Obviously, it's an annual contract, so there's no point doing it too early. If a firm has got a more complex structure, or maybe they've, for example, got involved in defined benefit pension transfers in the past, then engaging with us earlier is good, because we do delve into information in a different way and look at things in a bit more detail. So if there's any complexity there, it's worth engaging maybe 4 or 5 months before. But ultimately, the information that we collect on the application has to be relatively current, and we can't quote before 30 days before the policy inception anyway, with the exception of if a firm's going through an authorization process and needs a quote for their application. So yeah, I think 3 months is a good time, especially for a firm that's looking at ourselves for the first time, because we ask things in a different way. There might be a little bit of information gathering needed, and that should give them plenty of time. For our renewals, in fairness, because of what we've done in terms of the online solution and the fact that they can just fill in the application quite quickly, because the information's already been saved and populated from the previous applications, we actually tend to find 30, 45 days is plenty. So it gets a bit quicker. But yeah, if you're looking to make a move, I would engage at least 3 months before. Yeah.
This is it. Depends on how much legwork is needed beforehand, isn't it, really? So
yeah. There's so many variations, and you're absolutely right.
Of course there is.
Firms that have got a really good handle on their data can do it within a matter of hours, to be honest. Yeah. So there is quite a breadth of timeline on what we see. But yeah,
how many firms, in your experience, have got a really good handle on their data?
Well, obviously we've got the firms on the call today are all going to have a good
all
handle
of them,
on their
every
data.
single one of them.
It's improving. It's Good. Definitely improving. But I would still say it's probably one of the biggest issues that we see out there. I think, and I am going to refer to it later. I think one of the biggest priorities for all firms, regardless of what their plans are and what they should do, is to make sure that their data is as good as possible. Most of the back office systems we find are still not used fully properly. Yeah. And yeah, having a strategy to improve that is critical. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, John, the floor is yours. I'm excited to see the content. You speak about it enough, but let's see it firsthand. So if I stop sharing, I believe you will be able to just take over and share your screen.
Wonders of modern technology. There we go. Brilliant. Thank you. So yeah, from good to great. What I've found, I mean, with my background being a compliance background, and as you quite rightly touched upon before, most of my career has been in compliance oversight, board roles within financial intermediary networks and entities, with Sense Network obviously being my last business. Through all of that, I've learned an awful lot about what good looks like in financial services. And that was one of the big drivers for us looking at BareRock. It was realizing that the PI industry didn't support good quality firms. It supported the industry, but it treated pretty much everybody as one common denominator and one level, and that always felt inherently wrong when I was buying PI myself. But equally, it always worried me as a purchaser of PI that there were lots of companies that were included in the pot of insureds that we were insured with, that didn't have good processes and didn't have good compliance controls, and that were bringing in contagion risk into the insurance pot that we were proverbially swimming in. And when things went wrong, it was the claims from those bad actors that caused our premiums to have to go up, even though we'd not done anything ourselves, and our controls were in good shape. And that felt inherently wrong. So part of why we moved to BareRock and what we looked to do with BareRock was to not only improve the position for the firms that and how they experienced the PI process, but also to make sure that we selected carefully and only brought the right type of firm into what we're doing. So what's core to my sort of whole being at the moment and what we're doing with this is understanding what good looks like. I mean, our strapline, good companies and good company, which I'll come back to later, pretty much encapsulates exactly what we're talking about. But to do that, I found it really interesting to we've been going a year and a half now. We've engaged with an awful lot of firms, and we've said no to a lot, but we've said yes to a lot. And we've learned an awful lot about where firms are up to and what their compliance and controls look like, and also how that can then ultimately benefit. And that's what this presentation is looking at, is from the learning that I've had from my career, but also especially with the engagement with the firms that we insure now. I've started to build a really good picture of what works, what looks good, and what actually helps firms de-risk themselves, and how that actually can be a commercial advantage to them. And it's not unsurprising that we often find, and this is the first learning objective, that there are firms that are at various stages of that quality maturity. Yeah. So firstly, identifying where firms are up to in that picture is really helpful. Secondly, then what can they do, and helping work with firms and helping guide them on how they can help de-risk themselves and actually take on board some strategies and implement some strategies that will help themselves de-risk themselves, but also reduce costs and improve client outcome. And I found it really fascinating to see that. And then I will touch on today also just looking at how that can be leveraged to give a competitive advantage to the business, because I think it's not unsurprisingly something that's often underestimated with a business. And then I will just jump back and talk a little bit about how our PI can help benefit those well-run firms and just sort of square the proverbial circle at the end. So that's the objectives that I'm going to whiz through today. Let's dive into first just that, looking at that framework of where firms are up to, that quality maturity framework. The 4 stages of quality maturity, by the way, is something that's a widely used methodology. It's used in all different sectors. It's in all different business types. What we've developed is just taking that model and looking at how it applies to financial services specifically and financial intermediaries specifically. So looking at those 4 stages of maturity and bringing it to life for financial services. So as we'll go through this, and I appreciate that we've already asked the question up front, where do you think you are? Now I'll just explain what those 4 look like and give a little bit of background on the markers, and then we'll go back to that and just see where everybody thinks they are based on that in understanding.
We've also got a poll on this, John, haven't we?
Yeah, we'll do that on a poll in a couple of slides. Absolutely.
Yep,
Yeah, thank you. Let's start off. We've got compliance focused, process orientated, systems driven, and quality led. And those 4 stages of development, if we just drill into each one and look at them in a bit of detail, compliance focused, what we're looking here is that a firm is basically meeting minimum standards. They're meeting the regulatory requirements. But they view quality not necessarily as a benefit. They look at it as a cost center. They look at it as something they have to do rather than something they should do. They're therefore reactive to issues and complaints. They're not trying to preempt them. They just act when something happens. They'll often have maybe manual or inconsistent monitoring processes. They're not saying they're not doing it, but it's not necessarily as efficient as it could be. And they have limited standardization. So one thing that we do see quite often in firms that aren't as mature with their compliance processes is that they let advisors operate in very different ways. And they don't have any consistency across the business. So that's sort of the first stage that we look at, compliance focus. I will caveat, by the way, there is almost a cohort that sits below this, yeah? And the cohort that sits below this are the ones that don't care and don't even have the bare minimum in place and don't even meet their regulatory obligations. Let's ignore them because I don't think they're even on the journey, okay? But that's the first stage, compliance focused. You've then got process orientated. So this is where risk mitigation starts to come into the mix. They have more systemic approaches to reduce down those systemic risks. They are more standardized across maybe their key advice areas and how they work. They might have a more defined file checking and supervision process. They may well buy those processes in from a compliance support entity and have them help it. I'm not meaning they've designed them themselves, but they have them and they have bespoke that template so it's right for their firm. They will have some basic management information. They'll collect information. They'll assess that in board reports, etc. And they'll recognise that good quality advice and good quality processes is a risk mitigation tool. So that process starts to become a little bit more mature. Stage 3 is systems driven. And this is where their operations, their compliance controls and operations start to become an enabler and start to actually help them as a business. So they're often technology enabled. So they've more than got an Excel spreadsheet now. They've started to have back office systems, some comprehensive quality management systems where they analyze the information pulling through. Those technology enabled controls give them a better ability to look at things in strategic priority and start to target what they need to look at. So better sort of proactive identification of issues and maybe starting to spot problems before they become a problem. Okay, so they become very much a systems driven. And I would hazard a guess, looking at what I see across the industry, I would say a lot of the firms that we talk to are in a reasonably good shape and getting towards this stage 3. Yeah. What's rarer, and I don't see many of, is firms that have reached stage 4. And that's where they are led by that quality enabler. They think about continuous improvement. Their culture is absolutely a strategic differentiator. Their quality processes are fully embedded into their business strategy. So they think about it for every decision that they make. They think about how they can control it, how their compliance regime will work. They challenge themselves thinking about compliance to actually make it a culture of continuous improvement. Okay, and they start looking at business performance with a quality lens rather than just an activity lens. Yeah, and they then use those quality credentials to actually give themselves competitive advantage. And we'll spend a bit of time looking at that later. So based on now understanding what those 4 stages are, yeah, now we'll jump to the poll if we may, and let let everyone have their say. And just Chatham House, obviously, where do you feel you are on those 4 stages? There we go.
Do you feel, John, that over the last sort of 2, 3, 4 years that tech in our industry has come on such a long way now? You know, if you look at pre-COVID, if you like, where it was very, very old school, tech wasn't really being updated. It was very much sticking to what we know works.
Yeah.
Fast forward to today, there's new tech coming out all the time, and it is all about streamlining, automating. AI, people are still a little bit nervous with AI, what it can, what it can't do. But I think that's going to be an absolute game changer in the industry as well. Do you think, if you was to ask this question 5 years down the line, that you're going to see more people at stage 3 and stage 4 than what you would do typically today in the last 2 years?
I would hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that you're absolutely right. Technology has moved on quite significantly. What's come with that, unfortunately, is confusion and rather a disjointed overall environment. I see firms using lots and lots of systems that don't integrate very well, and I think we need to get better at that as an industry. I don't think that's me being hugely controversial with that statement. I think that's widely accepted. There's also just too much. There are so many systems out there that there's an awful lot of white noise, and I think people often get paralyzed with indecision as to how to operate and what to do, because there is so much choice. I did a blog on AI and stole a line from one of my co-directors that I put in there, which is, it's a little bit like a knife fight in a phone booth. Because there's so many new systems coming out, we don't know which ones will survive through. I also used Don't Bet on a Betamax, and I completely acknowledge that for a certain generation will have no idea what the hell I'm on about with that statement.
No idea.
But yeah, I think there is so much change. It's really exciting, and the end game is wonderful, but I think the journey is challenging, and I'm very sympathetic with firms. I'm going through that journey. I think it's a tough one, and picking the right solutions, it's hard. I always say as well, I mean, I look at my mobile phone. I'm wedded to Apple. The thought of moving to anywhere else is just fills me with dread and fear. And I think once you've gone down a certain technology route and you've got all your data in there and you've spent a lot of time, it's very difficult to break away from that and make a change. So it's not without its challenge, that journey, but it is, as you quite rightly say, very, very positive.
And that's absolutely right. You know, it's absolutely, you know, I could even reflect and look at the new Samsung. Oh, it's a nice flip screen, does this, does that, it looks amazing. But the thought of moving away from something I've used for so many years is absolutely daunting. You know, people don't want to do it, do they?
It's very tough. But I think now is the time to start challenging yourself, because I think the change is there. Or like I'm doing, waiting until Apple bring out a flip one and just living with it. Sorry. Right. But response is pretty much as I would expect. So process orientated, 64% of people. That's the big result there. So 64% of people say that they're in stage 2. 18% have reached stage 3 and 9% stage 4, which is great. And I wouldn't say an unreasonable indication of what I see across the industry. I'd say that's pretty representative.
Are these big steps in between each stage? Is there a lot of firms got to go through to reach the second tier?
No, it's culture. The difficulty is getting the people within the business to buy into the change and that cultural change. Hold that thought. I'll come back to that one a little bit later. Spoiler alert.
I'm jumping ahead.
But it's good. It means
I've not even seen the content and I want to see it.
It means the logic's following. So do I click share results, or is that already happened?
I've done that. That's done.
You've done that. Wonderful. See, technology. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's continue through. What I'll just do, just as a sort of a useful sort of check sheet, is just look at some recognizing markers for each of those four again, just to sort of continue to validate that through. I'm not going to go through these in a huge amount of detail. I think these are just useful for people to refer back to and just think about the sort of things that they would look like, and help them recognize themselves and just make sure that that's right. So the firms who said they're at stage one will probably recognize that they're still quite reactive. It's still quite manual in terms of processes, and it's still viewed very much as a cost rather than a benefit, the embracing of systems and controls and governance. Stage two, process orientated, moving on to more standardized processes, consistent documentation, using templates, etc. across the firm, having some basic metrics, and some decent supervision, very much sort of taking the bare minimum that you have to do for regulation, but starting to make it a little bit more efficient and make it more embraced across a business. And I would say the vast majority of the industry, as I said a couple of times, is in this category. Third category, that's systems driven. That's where you've started to really use systems to make yourself more efficient, becoming technology enabled. And how that works, by the way, is very different from firm to firm. It depends very much on the shape. You've got multi-advisor firms that need very different technology needs and very different systems and controls. A single advisor firm can be at this stage quite easily, just because they've only got to bring themselves along for that journey. But I do see that's one of the biggest challenges, as I say, is getting buy-in from advisors. As part of our BareRock offering, we do a consultation call with firms during the year to give them pointers how they can de-risk themselves and move up our club membership tiers that I'll talk about at the very end. And one of the things that I often find during those conversations is the business owners or the compliance and operational people really want to do it, but they've got a nervousness about getting the advisors to buy into and maybe embracing a technology change or a system that they're not used to. So, using some compliance software, they feel that there's often an advisor barrier. What I've actually found for the firms that have pulled the plaster off and done it is actually it's not real. The reality is advisors are actually more willing to embrace that change than the fear is always worse. By the way, it's the same for advisors, always been scared about upsetting their client bank with a change, and that rarely is the case as well. So the human nature is to put your own fears into the process, and sometimes when you actually bite the bullet and go for it, it's not as difficult to do as people often think. Quality-led one is this, as we say. It's nice to see that we've got people at that stage, but the reality is I think that's the aspirational plate. That's the bit where I would love to start seeing firms get to, where they literally their whole business is operated based on how can we do this efficiently and as compliantly as possible. Looking at anything that goes wrong, they'd look at continuous improvement and think about how can we fix that? How can we actually embed an improvement into our processes? And then using that differential and using those quality credentials to actually position themselves as a market leader. Because that's increasingly become important, and we will come to that in a second as well. Okay. So, talked an awful lot about how you recognize where you're at. Now, how do you start to move forward? How do you start to develop? And I will say, before I even go into this, an awful lot of this is common sense. And firms will go, well, actually, I'm already doing that. And some of the elements in there are things that I see firms doing quite regularly. What I often don't see, though, is firms doing all of it. So if you pull out one or two things from these suggestions that you think, oh, actually, that's something I could do, that's part of the journey, and just moving that forward a little bit. So what strategies can firms implement? Well, let's look at a strategy one. Not unsurprisingly, we already talked about it. First strategy is smart automation. How can you improve what you do and automate what you can do to improve your business model? So let's dig into that a little bit. Um, so automatic file screening. What we often find with firms is that when they do sort of quality checks or admin checks on files to make sure things have happened, they miss stuff. Yeah, I mean, I had a firm recently that they spotted an error, but not until it had gone wrong 10 times before. Yeah. And if you can build into your systems an automatic flag using technology to be saying this hasn't happened, yeah, those technology flags to actually mean that somebody can then manually go in to say, why has that gone wrong? It might be as simple as automate on a workflow fund switching, so that as you go through, and so at various points through that, data's pulled out that will spot whether the fund switch hasn't actually been actioned on the platform, for example, which is a real common error that we see across the industry. Yeah, administrative errors make up for an awful lot of time wastage within businesses. So if you can build in some element of automation to reduce that manual checking, you'll not only actually save yourself time in doing the checking because it's partly automated, but you'll also find it sooner, so you'll have to correct less of them. Okay. Template-driven processes. I mean, we've talked about them already, making sure you've got them. But what I actually find with a lot of template-driven processes is firms will buy them, but then don't actually bespoke them or make them applicable to their firms. Yeah. Think about how your business operates. Think about what your target market is, and start to really develop how to make them work for you rather than just have them as a tick box. Okay.
So it's doing the basics, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it really is. It's amazing how often I'll see a compliance process document or a process flow where it doesn't actually fit with the firm that's using them. Yeah. So just starting to spend a little bit more time just thinking it. By the way, I would also say in the vast majority of instances, those template processes can be really slimmed down. Yeah, because they cover for lots and lots of variations and lots of things. So make it yours, own your processes.
Yeah.
Exception reporting. Highlight which files need attention. Yeah. So there's an awful lot. I mean, this is a really big thing from right now as well. I mean, I know that the FCA review on ongoing service actually came up with relatively favorable output at the end. But in reality, I think, and I quite openly said this, I think that was through partially luck rather than judgment. I think they engaged with bigger firms where they had in-house compliance. I think if they looked at maybe some of the smaller directly authorized firms, I think the ongoing service delivery isn't necessarily as well documented. I'm not saying firms aren't doing it, by the way. I think they are, yeah, but it's the evidence of that and the documentation of that. And that's, again, where technology can really start to help build your processes using workflow technology, making sure that steps are missed. And then you've got an audit trail of it happening and when it happened. Yeah. And quite frankly, that, you know, that also helps you position yourself with the regulator from not just that service delivery evidence, but also that you're delivering fair value and how you're delivering value, because you can show what you're doing for clients. But by highlighting where it's gone wrong or where it's you might need to spend more time, that exception reporting becomes really powerful off the back of that. I sort of jumped ahead, client communication automation. Those that automate the process. Why have admin people sat there wasting their time sending out manual email invites and so forth when you can automate that end of the process? Most of the back office systems have now functionality that helps with this, but it's just not being used very much. Okay, strategy 2. Slightly quicker one, risk-based approach. I would say that if you engage with a compliance consultancy, I would suggest most of this one will be done. So let's just have a quick look at some examples here. Making sure that you focus on transaction risk and that you change how you work depending on that transaction risk. And that will include, for example, vulnerability. Yeah. So where you've got a vulnerable customer, How do you change how you engage? How do you change what you do? Do you have a second eyes check at different stages in the process? So looking at high risk client situations and complex cases, just making sure, size, by the way, is another good example. Yeah, a very large fund switch. Yeah, you might want to make sure that one's looked at by somebody else. Yeah, and make sure that it's been done correctly straight away. Yeah. Whereas for small transactions, maybe you don't look as many. So think about a risk-based approach to your sort of peer reviews and your quality checks. And I don't mean advice checks at this stage. We'll come to that one in a second. Yeah. Advisor risk. Make sure you're tailoring supervision based on their experience, their performance. So we see an awful lot of modular activity where everybody gets the same. So everybody gets a quarterly one-to-one. Well, why does somebody who's really good, got brilliant case review results, really good advice metrics, why are you doing them quarterly? When you've got another person in the firm that you're also doing quarterly where they're getting their case review wrong. And target your resource. Start thinking about making sure you're spending the time with the right ones. Then you've got the case review. Yeah. Think about, again, we see a lot of firms do a lot of case review and it's brilliant, but they quite often don't target it to higher risk. So what's the point in checking a load of green cases that are ISA top-ups and not checking some more complex, pension advice where it would benefit from that second line of defense or third line of defense. So building in a pre-approval is something we absolutely love. And I think a lot of quality firms, we see high-risk transactions are pre-approved. That's not critical of an advisor. Let's acknowledge some advice is really complex. Having two pairs of eyes look at it before it happens to make sure that it's been done correctly is totally sensible. And again, that's something often I think firms are scared that advisors are going to not like and be annoyed at. But actually, what I've always found is if you make it part of your environment, part of your support structure, rather than a punitive thing, actually it's something that advisors actually appreciate. It gives them that sanity protection as well. And last but not least, outcome-based monitoring. Don't just think about activity monitoring, how much you've done. Think about the client outcome. I've seen firms start to develop personality profiles for clients. I love that concept. Yeah, where you start to build, this is the profile of my typical clients, and then start looking at what's happening for clients and which profile they fit in, and is it therefore in line with what you would expect for them as a client profile. That personality profile approach I really quite like, and we're starting to see that more and more. And just as by way of one quick example there, for some personality profiles of clients, they're not interested in growth. They're about wealth preservation and protection, not growth. But we still see the biggest sort of analysis on outcome-based monitoring it's used at the moment is, what's the performance of the portfolios? How's it gone? Yeah. So maybe just change how you think about things a little bit. I'm going backwards.
John, Ravi's asked if the slides will be available as well. Attendees?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. We can get the slides over.
I'll supply you with a PDF so you can. Yeah.
Amazing. That's great. Thanks.
It's why I put quite a lot of bullet points on there, to be fair, for exactly that reason.
Perfect.
Sorry, I should have said that rather than having people scribbling stuff down. Apologies.
Brilliant.
Okay, next strategy, continuous improvement. I mean, this one really is so obvious. I almost feel a little bit insulting to sort of talk it through. It's common sense, but it's very hard to do. Okay, so building into your processes and into your compliance structure, the root cause analysis, first one on the bullet point, really spending time looking at when something goes wrong, why did it go wrong? How can you stop it from going wrong again? When you have case review results coming in, looking at, well, what was wrong in the case review? Don't just fix it for that case. Yeah. Look at, well, why did that happen? How can we stop it from happening again? That root cause analysis is so empowering, and it really reduces time and cost. because as soon as you start to actually do that analysis, you prevent it from happening again, and therefore you don't have to fix it again, and straight away you're putting yourself under much less pressure and improving.
As stupidly, it's common sense. Yeah,
it's so common sense. Most of this, as I say, is common sense.
Yeah.
It's hard not to be common sense, but it is what we see firms. This is what we see the really good firms doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite useful for people. If you learn from what good looks like, adopt it, and then you'll get the same benefits.
I think what we see quite a lot is people are busy being busy fools. You know, it's just fix that problem, move on. But it's fix that, prevent that, move on.
Spot on. Absolutely spot on. Yeah. Performance trend analysis. With so much data now, Consumer Duty really lifted the bar for firms and the expectation on firms to collect data, analyze data, think about their data. What I actually find is that firms have got very good at doing that, but they're not actually doing anything with it. So they're not analyzing that data to spot trends early, to prevent impact on clients. And also that, you know, it all feeds into feedback loop, looking at those trends and learning from them, and then making sure that you update and embed your process. So, and then likewise, training all the way through. Learn, develop, improve. It's not an old, it's been around as a concept for a long, long time. Get your data, look at your data, look at what's happened, look at what that root cause is, how it could actually be improved. Yeah, what was the issue, or what could prevent the issue, and then use it for feedback loops and for training. So don't just do training that's driven on, well, tick box every year, we need to do X amount of hours on every product area. Use it to actually develop how people improve and don't make mistakes that they've made before, or that you know, reduces the probability of complaints. So really, that continuous improvement, so common sense, as I say, I almost feel insulting talking about it, but it is actually what we often see missing. Yeah.
Sometimes, John, people just need that reminder as well. I know it sounds silly, but sometimes it's just, I know I need to do that. I do need to do that. But again, it goes back to being busy fools, doesn't it?
100%, 100%. So value creation. Again, this isn't rocket science. Yeah. So, you know, looking at the data and thinking about how that could actually be used to actually benefit what you're doing. I mean, picking on a simple example, the number of times I see firms where their mortgage advisors' fact finds and data is never shared with the wealth advisors within the business. Yeah, and they don't pick up on glaring needs. If a financial advisor looked at a mortgage advisor's fact find, they would often spot opportunity. Yeah, and it's not done. So you do that centrally. Use your data to look at that, because that's where you start to actually build real value from having these good controls and this good data. Look at client outcome, yeah, and how you can start to demonstrate value through some of the data that you collected. Share that data. Tell clients why what you do works and how it works, because that's what clients want. They want the reassurance of knowing that things are going to be looked after and you're actually going to deliver on what they want. That starts to give you that competitive differentiation. You can leverage those quality controls and start to use it for marketing and client acquisition. And process innovation. Start thinking about, well, actually, we've got a massive opportunity. Can we change our processes? Can we change what we do to actually pick up on missed opportunities? Again, I'm gonna whiz through that because I'm conscious I'm already running out of time. This was always the danger with this topic. I didn't know how long it would take me, but the big strategic takeaway from sort of the learning is it's not quality and maturity isn't just about compliance. It's about how you can transform that quality from just being a cost to the business to actually being a competitive advantage. How you can utilize compliance controls and systems to make you more efficient and actually make you less risk, and therefore actually a better firm to work with. So diving straight into how you can then use this and actually improve your credentials as a result. And again, common sense all the way through this. Nothing here is going to be a huge surprise to you. But if you build that development wheel where, you know, you invest in compliance, that improves the quality. And that investment, by the way, doesn't necessarily have to be human investment. That could be technology investment and process investment. That then feeds through to quality improvement. That feeds through to recognition, which puts you as a better position in the market. That means it helps you to grow, which means you've got more money to invest in compliance. And that virtuous circle is very easy to get going. Yeah. And I see really good firms do it very, very well. But let's just pick out some of the obvious advantages through this. Efficiency and productivity. If you've got workflows and the workflow monitoring, you instantly reduce manual work. So you're increasing efficiency. It's just so obvious that it almost doesn't need saying. That increased efficiency means you can spend more time with clients. And what clients actually want from an advisor is the conversation, not them doing the admin and not the presenting how they've done the funds, etc. They want to talk about their objectives and how that works. Increased efficiency gives you more time to do that because you're not running around like a proverbial headless chicken trying to do the rest of it. Yeah. The staff who've got more time make less errors. And that again increases productivity. Yeah. Because if they're not making an error that they then have to fix, they can actually do more. Because fixing a problem takes a lot more time than doing the job in the first place. Yeah. So more time, greater productivity. Stressed staff is a major problem and something that's quite easy to fix. Less time fixing errors and getting rid of the cost of correcting those errors. Because, I mean, as I said before, one of the most common things we find is that firms are having to put right fund switch errors, etc.
And I think that all boils back down to that one-to-one review process with your staff. If you've got staff, unless you're doing it yourself, but it's having those structured one-to-one reviews where you're sitting down, and sometimes it's off the record. You might be going for a walk and just finding out how they are as a person, their workload, the capacity. You want to identify the burnout way before the burnout actually happens, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, this all links to the next point. You've also, as well as them being more efficient, they'll be happier. And that improves retention of staff. I talk to advisors all the time that I've lost my administrator, or the better firms don't lose staff as much. No. They retain and they can attract better staff because they, good quality staff and by staff, I mean, and advisors, I hasten to add. Good quality advisors, especially the new breed coming through, the new blood coming into the industry. Reputation is a really big thing for them. They don't want to be working for a firm that might be subject to that regulatory scrutiny. They want to work for a good quality. So that straight away, and the happier and more relaxed staff are and advisors are, that will bleed through to how they deal with clients. Yeah. Awesome. And instantaneously, you'll get a better reputation because if you've got unhappy and stressed staff, clients pick up on it. Yeah. So feed that through. All common sense. I do appreciate. There's nothing I'm saying here that's hugely earth-shattering. Yeah.
And even if it's not the staff, think about yourself. If you're overworked and you're stressed, you are gonna. That is gonna rub off. If it's not your clients, it's your family, it's your friends. It's 100%. Really thinking about it as a whole.
And this is what people. So actually, not having embedded compliance and having embedded processes actually causes that stress in the first place. Yeah. And that's that maturity. That's exactly the point. And client acquisition equally flows through, by the way. More and more, there's been lots of surveys and lots of data where I see that one of the biggest things that they cite as critical for them is that they trust the firm. So having decent and sharing that this is how you work, sharing your client satisfaction surveys, this is how good we are. Sharing your external validation, so third-party certifications and memberships, make sure, and getting them, and then putting them out there as part of what you do with clients. This really starts to help you attract and retain the right type of clients. That professional recognition, I mean, lots of firms do it, but they might have it on the website. Make it part of the process, make it more front foot. Do those client satisfaction surveys. It's absolutely critical. You will get more referrals from happy clients where they trust you than where you don't. And so in terms of client acquisition cost, you can bring that down as well because you're more likely to just naturally grow from referrals. I've given myself a couple of minutes just to talk about what we do at BareRock, because it does link to this.
It does, yeah.
Because this is another benefit to good quality. So what we've designed within BareRock is a club feel, basically, where we've got club membership tiers, and we progress people through that club membership depending on how good their compliance is. Now, there's not a direct correlation with the framework we just talked about, yeah? We can have Club 20 firms who aren't at the final tier of the quality matrix, but it clearly the two are inextricably linked in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And a firm that is at the higher end of that maturity model is more likely to be at the higher end of our club scoring matrix, because that's how we've designed the matrix for exactly that purpose. So as firms progress through there's direct cost benefit. So if, and by the way, bearing in mind what we said before about avoiding the contagion risk, avoiding the problematic firms, club entry is still a real positive. Yeah. Because we're not taking everybody. We're being very, very selective on who we bring in. So that entry level is still an achievement. But then from that point, if you can progress through to 10 and 20 membership because of your governance controls, your system usage and risking controls, etc., then there's an additional 10% discount and 20% discount for those upper tiers. But the big bit for me that links to this is you don't want to be swimming in a pool with all of the bad apples and bad actors in the industry. So what we're building is a safe group of firms that we select carefully, that are of the right type, and let's everyone else have sit outside of that bubble, because then we can be more stable in terms of premiums, we can be fairer in terms of premiums, and we can recognize the good quality firms.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I think I've just given myself time for that last poll, which, have you got this set up?
Yep, I'm ready for it. There we go.
Perfect. Now, just to explain what because the bottom one here, I appreciate is a bit of a strange one, because it's not something we've talked about as we've gone through the day. But the get ready for acquisition actually links back to what we talked about before about quality of data. Yeah. So if your target investment in the next 12 months is actually to get yourself fit for sale, what I mean by that is you're going to spend time making sure your data and your business is as clean as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
it's already interesting, isn't it? Look at that, update technology solutions.
It is. And do you know what? It's so hard to do this stuff when you're in your business every single day. You know, it is so hard, because you walk through the door or wherever you go to your place of work and you go back to doing what you do, and that's working on your clients or whatever it may be. I think sometimes you have to take time out of the business to work on the business. And that's where you can really make some big changes. It's just having somebody in that office. You know, we're at a stage now within our profession where if there's something that you're doing on a daily basis, if there's a repetitive task, chances are it could be automated now. You know, that's where we're at. You can either outsource it or automate it these days. You know, and I think sometimes you just need to sit back and talk to other business owners, very much like your club members. I can imagine all of those club members are in some way, shape, or form maybe communicating with each other. And you know, these club entry and club 10s want to find out a little bit more about the club 20s and what they've implemented and how they're doing it. And you know, nobody is cards close to their chest and not willing to share anything. People are so open these days. And right, it should be. You know, you need to learn from others and really just take time out, reflect, to work on and grow. It's so important.
It's very much, and I'm just going to flick on actually, if I can. Just back to go reiterate the strapline: good companies in good company. That's very much our ethos. So we're over time, as we learn from the firms that we work with what works and what good practice is, we share that out. So we're already issuing out regular BareRock bulletins where we talk to how firms could improve and so forth, because we've got access to information that I don't think exists anywhere else as a result of how we collate the PI information. And I think it's already proving quite fascinating. And we're already seeing, I have to put it up because our design guys spent so much time pulling together this next slide that it's almost cruel not to use it. Okay. I hope it plays okay through.
That's brilliant.
Through the process. But basically what we want to do is work with firms to actually make them less risk so that we can bring their premiums down, which sounds contrary to what everybody would think about insurance. But the reality is if we've got lots of Club 20 firms, we've got much less risk in our overall book, and therefore, being blunt, we will make more money too. Yeah. So if our loss ratios and our payouts are improved because we're working with firms to make them less risk, we can share and pass on some of that, and we can also make ourselves more stable and make more money as well. So everybody wins. It's a win-win situation. But yeah, I've got to give credit. This slide wasn't designed by me, but I do love it. It's quite a good way.
It's a great slide. It is. John, can I ask, what wouldn't, or what would you have to see in a firm where they wouldn't fit your criteria, the entry? You know, what is it that would have to really stand out for you to go, look, I just don't think, or what could that be?
I think I'm going to go back to the data point, if I'm honest. So I'm just moving my screen around so I can see people. There we go. Yeah, the data point is a critical one. What we often find, because our application does dig into a bit more detail, because we do bespoke underwriting and we actually quote based on a firm's risk rather than just market risk, which is how it's currently largely done. We collect more info. So what we often find is firms can't answer it. Yeah. Right. Because they haven't got, and they don't actually understand their business, and they don't understand their risk. Yeah. And whilst that doesn't necessarily mean that they are a risk, it makes it harder for us to show it. So that's the big red flag. We've had firms that literally have no line of sight at all as to their product split or what they've done. Yeah, they and there are firms, by the way, and we've seen some good examples of firms who've developed their own systems. Yeah, but there are a lot of bad examples of that as well. Yeah. And I think, having access to decent data, at the moment, I would say is probably the biggest red flag for us. Yeah.
Do you send these firms off with a little bit of a checklist, like get your stuff, start looking at these and come back? Or
it depends. Yeah.
Everybody's got a motto, and we've firmly got a motto in the club about who we want to work with and who we don't want to work with. I think, and I hope as business owners of financial planning firms, there's clients that you want to work with and there's clients that you don't want to work with, right? It's just how you define your niche and scale your business. Because if you're a catch-all, then you're not a specialist, are you? So it's very much about defining your niche, but. It's very interesting on the data front. It's got to get easier for these firms, but you'd also like to think with the Gabriel reports and the consumer duty that they should have a lot of this stuff in line anyway.
Yes, you would. It makes me very suspicious that some firms just make up their Gabriel returns. Being slightly cynical. Sorry, my inner compliance person came out a tab there, didn't it? I do apologise.
You've held him back for so long, just over an hour.
I did so well today, didn't I? No, but the reality is, everyone who's on this webinar will have remembered a time where they were sat at an industry event and the person next to them made them wince with how unprofessional and how inappropriate maybe they were about how they talked and what they did. And I'm afraid there are still problematic people in the industry that just don't really care. Yeah. They are quite easy to spot, thankfully, and that's exactly what we're doing. Yeah. If we can avoid that type of firm and that type of entity. So going back to do I talk to them? If they're that type of entity, no, because what's the point? I'd be wasting my breath. Yeah. If they are a firm where I see that they could improve, we might even take them and work with them on that improvement journey, by the way. But there has to be a willingness. They have to be both willing and able is the measure that we look at. Yeah. So if
Yeah.
there's a willingness to improve and there's an ability to improve, then we can work with them. But yeah, sometimes that will be, look, actually, can you do this? Can we get this information? Let's keep talking and let's look at it. The problem, obviously, is the PI ensures everything historically. Yeah. So your PI policy this year covers for claims on everything you've done previously as a business. So sometimes it's hard for us to fix a firm where there's a long legacy of problematic transactions or lack of evidence on those transactions. So it's not always easy to fix everybody. So, and we're fiercely protective of the club because we want to make sure that we protect everybody in that club. So we can't let the wrong ones in. So sometimes we just have to say no, even if we like them, we have to say no.
A little bit off subject, I suppose, but do you see that where advisors might be moving DA network DA, whatever it may be, that some of these firms don't accept novation of clients because of that? Because when you novate, you're transferring the whole liability of that client bank, right? Where transfer of agency, is it almost like wiping the slate clean? Liability stays where it was previously.
A lever from a network, yes, ultimately, because the principal regulated entity. Now that doesn't mean there's not contractual conditions. A breakaway from a directly authorized firm or an acquisition of a directly authorized firm is slightly different, and it's been interesting. The regulators post their polluter pay paper, which I know they didn't progress with some of the proposals, but they have progressed with how they are engaging with firms that are ceasing to trade to a greater degree. We're seeing a lot more things like deed polls being put on the acquiring firms to make sure they take responsibility for that transferring liability. So we are seeing a changing shape there, which, to be honest, is a good thing, because people dropping the liability onto the FSCS again just means everybody else pays more. So I think there's a lot of positive changes there, but yeah, it's quite an interesting world in that regard at the moment.
It is. Do you see it as a bit of a generational thing as well? Do you see the older generation, the advisors and the firm owners that are probably thinking, do you know what? I cannot be bothered with this. I'm going to be selling in 5 years. I want to, I want to wind down, consolidate. I want to sell. I'm not interested in adopting all of this new tech, this AI. I've been doing this the way I've been doing this for many, many years now. I've got no interest. Do you see it as a generational thing as well?
I do, yeah. I think that's natural. I think people get used to how they've worked, and embracing change isn't a natural thing for most people. In truth, I'm very, very enthusiastic about a lot of the what I refer to as the new blood. Try not to call them young, because I'm still young. Obviously, I'm not claiming.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Only as young as you feel, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So no, I think a lot of the new blood coming into the industry embraces the improvements and the technology much more readily, and I think there's probably quite a positive future with 100%. A lot of them. The problem is there isn't enough of them at the moment.
100%.
And again, going back to the benefits of, as we talked about on the session today, one of the benefits of attracting new talent into a firm is if you can demonstrate that you're a modern firm and you're a better compliance risk and you do things properly and you've got a really high ethic level, you're more likely to attract young people into that business to work, because culturally, I do find that the generation coming out of university into employment now, they have a lot more understanding and comprehension of ethics and want to see change in the world in a way that I'm not convinced happened in 1927 when I came out of school. So.
This is it. Things have moved on, and it's just breaking habits, isn't it? I mean, even we had a bit of a strategy meeting yesterday, and there's something that we've been doing the same way for a while now, and it's just step back, reflect, look at that. You know, can we improve it? Can we automate it? Can we make it easier? Can we make it quicker, faster? Can we make it more user friendly? You know, but like I said earlier, when you're in the business every single day, you continue to do the same things every single day. And until something goes wrong, you've got an option. Do you fix that problem and prevent it, or do you fix it and move on? And it's very, very rare that we see many people
work out how it happened, stop it from happening again.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
That's it.
Yeah?
That's it.
It really is pretty much that simple.
Yeah. It's very rare that we see people take real good time out of their business to focus on their business as a whole. And you know, one bit of advice is just do it, because you will make a massive transformation in your business overnight. Absolutely. Appreciate that we've gone over 10 minutes. There's still a few people hanging around, so if you do have any questions, fire away. If not, enjoy the beautiful weather that we've got whilst we've got it. Who knows how long it's here for? I think typically the weather is getting a bit cooler the weekend, which is standard. It's the weekend. Why wouldn't it? You know, it's 30 degrees all week, and then Friday comes and it says, only joking, it's 23. But look, if you've got any questions, fire away. If not, thank you all again for joining us on another session. John, thank you so much for your time. It was very good, very insightful. Hopefully a lot of people took some good takeaways from that session.
Yeah, you're welcome. Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Cheers, Lee.
Not a problem at all. Guys, thank you all, and until next time.